Hello, friends. So happy to have you here with me today at Radical Joy. If you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time with us, well, we're glad you're here. Each Wednesday, I'm here with you talking about things that weigh on my mind and heart, hoping if you're dealing with something similar, we can adjust our perspectives as you listen. The more people I meet and the more places I go, the more I realize how important it is to make people aware of the fact that there is no shame in enjoying the parts of your life that are incredible. It's time for some radical joy. And this week, the three fingers pointing back at me are for serious. It ain't that serious. That is the motto that I want to sort of make the underlying or through line for today's episode. And I know how that's going to sound upon first inspection. And that's part of the reason why we're here is because we don't love living on first impressions or first thoughts. We like to explore those ideas just a little bit more because I think that the knee jerk reaction, the initial, is usually the way you were raised, the way your surroundings shape you. And I think if you just take a moment to explore things like this, that you will eventually figure out what of those things you're going to keep, what of those things you're going to let fall to the wayside, and hopefully take those nuggets of what you want to keep and kind of like squeeze them together to make the center of the person you are and the person you want to be. The person I want to be is the one that looks at things that are happening around us and realize that there are differing levels of seriousness. Okay. We deal with a lot on the day to day, and there's a lot in our lives that we can be incredibly grateful for. There are a lot of things in our lives that we could absolutely expect to get better. And the reason why this idea came to me today is because I keep thinking if literally everything is serious and we have to take it all seriously, we have to prioritize it as grade A, top of the list, bullet point, must be addressed. I can't help feeling as though that literally puts everything on the same level at either DEFCON 5 or nothing at all, flatline. I have to continue to remind myself that there is a spectrum of what is important and what is serious and what the rest of it just kind of needs to be let go. Okay. And this is me just talking to me. I'm like, okay, if literally everything is a house fire, well, then where do you start? Where do you begin your efforts to make sure that this whole thing doesn't burn to the ground? Right? It almost gets to the point where you feel sort of frozen in place. And I don't love that. I feel helpless. I feel as though that my wheels are stuck in either snow or mud, and I continue to expend all this energy, burn my gas, rip the rubber off my tires, and I'm not getting anywhere very quickly. So, in order to do that, I've got to be or in order to be a little more effective, what I have to do is sort of look at where I am, try to zoom out. I get stuck in the middle of a lot of my stuff a lot because I'm the one in the middle of it. Like I'm literally the focus point. I'm the elbow where everything else just sort of like rotates around. I'm the fulcrum. And yeah, in my own life, I think that's really important. I want to be the main character in my life story, sure. And I need to make sure that I can find a way, whether it's through journaling or introspection or talking to friends that I trust, to make sure that I can get a little bit different perspective on what's going on. To be candid with myself and others to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm just a little overwhelmed with the way things are going. What do I do? How do I prioritize what things are important? What are the serious parts of my life? And what are the rest of this? Do I need to sort of like put on a back burner, if keep on the stove at all, in order to stay afloat so I don't burn dinner? I'm like, ooh, I mixed my metaphor with the floating part. Great. Let's drag that back in here with why we're on the oven in the first place, why we're on the stove. It's important to make sure that some of those things are serious. We've got bills to pay. We have important people in our lives that need our attention and focus. We have a job to do. We have a mission to accomplish. We need to continue to check in with ourselves to make sure that all those things are serving us, that we're showing up to the things that need our attention and presence. And we also need to make sure that the things that don't right now, that we continue to move those around in our list. Like say you've got a top 5 or top 10. Okay, this is what needs my attention right now. And I will continue to do that until it gets to the point where I feel it can handle its own intention for a hot second. Great. Perfect. That's exactly what I want to do. If we continue to try to devote the same amount, the same percentage of energy to all of these things in our top 5, top 10, however many lists, I think it's going to be of poorer service to who we are and what we want to try to accomplish. And when I say we, I mean that. That's not a, well, I've got my poop in a group. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is I continue to have to check in with myself because now this is going well. And I need to make sure that I back off that a little. I need to take my foot off the gas just a touch in that respect and look to see what other aspects of my life need more attention and intention right now. Okay, great. It goes back to, I think it was The Incredibles. I think that was one of their underlying principles whenever they made that movie. It's like if everything is special, then nothing is special. Almost identical idea. It's just we're worried about it now because it feels like, especially here in the US, that we got a lot of things to concern ourselves with. And we do. I'm not trying to say that we don't. I think that would be an exercise in futility. I think it would be a lie to myself and my country people, my other citizens. I also think that there are a lot of things out there that cannot be helped by me individually right now. And there are things that I need to be focused on so that I can do better, be better, both now and in the future. Not just for myself, but also for the greater good of the community. It feels like there are many forces in the world that are trying to get us angry, separated, divided, etc. This is not a political situation. This is just me saying, hey, I feel that. Wow, do I ever. And there are so many things that are pulling at us that we're starting to really wake up to acknowledge and realize. I'm like, yes. And there are things happening in Israel right now. And I promise you, I don't know enough about that to take a really strong stand like a lot of my other friends are doing. And they continue to holler, well, if you don't take a stand, then you're complicit. I was like, well, okay. I'm just going to have to be okay with that right now because I'm going to have to learn more about this before I'm able to take a strong stand in any direction. I have Jewish friends. I have friends that are from specific demographics that have a very strong opinion on this. And I honestly admire that. I continue to take in information so that hopefully I can be a smarter, more well-informed individual when it comes to creating my opinion on that. I consider myself to be lucky in the fact that right now my attention is devoted to other ideas at the moment. I'm trying to figure out who to vote for. I'm trying to figure out what it is that I'm going to be doing with my future employment. I'm trying to figure out where home is going to be, even though I just signed another year lease on my apartment here in Vegas. And I love it. I love my space. And there are other circumstances that weigh on me to make me question whether or not I've made the right decisions on those things. And I think that's part of the world we live in. As long as you are just overwhelmed with all the things that are going on in your life right now, it's hard to pick a direction and start moving. Because I think that there are a lot of people who have a lot to gain if we are too angry, too scared, too overwhelmed to continue moving forward. And that's not me feeling sorry for myself. I hope that's just me being candid and open in the things. And this is not necessarily bad because I'm aware of it. I know this is happening, and so it's one of those things where like, okay, if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. Okay, great. In order to avoid nothing being a priority, I have to make some choices, and they're tough because I've got a lot of people that I love a lot. They're saying, "Well, and I'm hoping that these people whom I love and hold in high esteem will also give me the grace to understand that, look, I don't have the emotional spectrum for that right now. My bandwidth is just a little strained, okay? I am doing my dead level best. Just because I'm not hollering it from every rooftop or taking a very specific stand on this right now, please understand that it's not that I don't care. It's just that I'm still trying to figure out which way to go. And I don't think I'm alone in that. Okay, I don't think this is something that I am just by myself in handling right now. There are other things in my life that are pushing on me a little bit harder in that respect, and I hope that the people in my life that consider that to be their main priority item are going to give me just a little bit of grace. In the past, whenever I have tried so hard to stay on top of every single one of these line items, I've made very strong stances. I have grown through them. I have adjusted and evolved through them. And I think that it served me to make a strong stance and then figure out. I think that a lot of my friends knew about my initial stance, but didn't necessarily have the time or the attention to go with me through my growth. And I think that cost me some friends, people that I really enjoyed, people I loved, people I found valuable to me in my life and my journey. And in order to avoid that right now, I'm being very careful about what it is that I claim to be my stance. I've still got some facts and some homework to do. I very rarely are you going to hear me say the word research ever again. Okay? There are certain terms and things like that in my life that have been absolutely poisoned by the last few years that we've all dealt with things like political and COVID and all these other kind of things that really just put a lot of us farther away from each other. Research is not something that I do. You're not going to find footnotes in any of the things that I'm studying or reading about or learning more about. You're not going to have any kind of peer reviewed documentation or publications from me on many, many things. So I'm going to be real careful about using the word research. Homework? Sure. I'll study something. I'll put some energy behind it. I will try to learn more about it. I'll talk to people who I think are more knowledgeable than myself and come to a more informed opinion about some of these topics that face us. I'm not a scholar. I'm a guy with strong opinions. I'm a guy who wants to love people and can still be very frustrated and disappointed in people. And I can love individuals and be excited to spend time with them and realize that the difference between an individual and a group of people is diverse, wide, varied, crazy. And sometimes I have to be very cognizant of the fact that what I'm being told is different than what is. Okay. And again, I'm not trying to get political on this. I think it's very difficult to avoid being political at all times. So I need to make sure that I acknowledge and then continue to press on. It's like, all right, yeah, there's stuff in my life that I just don't have the time for it right now. I don't. Doesn't mean it's any less important in the grand scheme of things or in the scope of the world. No, it doesn't. I'm just saying that I'm one person with a finite set of resources and feelings and love, and I will choose those things more carefully. The proportions of those things will continue to flux, and I will just have to be okay with it. And so will everyone else in my life. We're learning a lot. I think the year of our Lord 2024 is a lot of focus and a lot of intention and a lot of discovery. We've learned a lot of things, and we're coming up on a lot more things that are very important, both as citizens of the world and citizens of the United States and all these other kind of things. And we just kind of have to breathe. I know I do. Goodness gracious. There are so many things that could just send me into a blind rage. We're talking about things. Let me just say that, trying to be as careful as I can with some privacy. I was speaking with a young woman last night who is very important to me, Her family is very important to me, and we're talking about things, and I had to define to her. Now, this is something I don't know if this was my pronunciation because, Southern speak doesn't really ring true in every ear in the United States or in the world for that matter. And I said the word colt, COLT. And she looked at me at 13 years of age blankly, and her father had to explain to her what a colt was. Now, this young woman knows how to avoid an active shooter drill. She has information on what she's supposed to do in the event that a gun person comes into her school with bad intentions. And yet, at the ripe old age of 13, she didn't know the word for baby horse. I have questions. Okay? That to me is serious. We continue to want to talk about these things and we fight. Oh my God, tooth and nail, ready to come to fisticuffs about some of these things. And I'm just like, this seems so incredibly commonsensical to me, and we're still fighting about it however many years later. And I would laugh if it weren't so sad. We continue to worry about why the nation is in decline, why our teachers continue to leave in droves, why our medical professionals continue to leave the profession, why there aren't more entering these honored professions that we need as a society to succeed, to continue to be, quote unquote, the best country in the world. And I marvel, and that ain't a good marvel. And I was like, okay, it can't all be serious. It can't. And then we continue to look at these situations. I had no idea. Like I was just kind of like brought into this. I'm like, and I don't want to hurt her feelings. She doesn't know what she doesn't know. And she doesn't know it. That's the crazy part about it. Articulate, delightful, knowledgeable, wonderful, wise for her years, definitely. And there are spots missing that for whatever reason we find it necessary to teach this thing instead of that thing. And yeah, I mean, if you don't live to see 16, I guess that is, pretty important part of the education. How have we gotten here? How have we found ourselves here? I don't know. I keep saying it ain't political, and here we get. And I don't know. I don't know. I also don't think that maybe this should be a political thing. I think that the well-being and the education and the safety of our children and our future generations should be more important than the way we treat it. I said what I said. And I can revel in the fact that there are things that we have to choose. And that's just it. We're all different. We all have different lives. And that way we have to choose what it is we consider important. If it ain't serious, drop it. Now, I want to be a part of her education. I do. I want to be a part of her life. I want to be a part of her cultural exposure. And I continue to defer to her parents' judgment. Like, we may have differing opinions. And also, whenever we're talking, I say, hey, anything that I say that goes against what your parents want you to know or want you to hold as a priority, please listen to them because as much as I love you, it pales in comparison to how much your parents love you. So please always, always, always go there. Listen to them. Do what they want you to do. And it's interesting too that we have to come to a point where I'm also talking about police and educators and these kind of things because what your parents want for you versus what those other groups of people want for you will not always match. And that's a tough decision. That's a tough way to go about what to decide who to listen to. And it's one of those things where it's crazy that we have reached a point where those things are no longer the same curricula. if that makes any kind of sense. It's just like, okay, my parents say this thing because I'm a harder target whenever I'm out in this area, but my educators tell me that I need to stay inside. Okay. And this is what I think, and that I should trust the police, and if anything happens, that I should go to them and talk with them about these kinds of things. Like, okay, how do you feel about it? Like, it's gotten to the point now where it's so interesting to be able to talk to people, and again, like what we were talking about earlier at the beginning of the episode, your knee jerk reaction is the way that you were raised, and if you are reaching the age that I am, there's a lot of time and change between how you were raised versus how you are now. And you have to ask yourself the question whenever you have your knee jerk reaction. Okay, great. So, what am I doing with that? Am I following it blindly, even though there are X number of years between how I was taught and the way the world is now? That's a great question. That's a very interesting question, and one that needs attention and time and attention to detail to make sure that if there is a divergence between what you thought was right and good and well taught then and all of those adjectives now, great. Knee jerk doesn't serve you unless you're a child. Okay? Knee jerk is the thing that we teach our children to make sure that whatever they face, whenever they face it, please, God, let us be wise enough to teach our children the things they need to know in the year of our Lord 2024. So that whenever they're faced with it, they don't approach it with ignorance or innocence, because I think both of those things are in abundance with children. That's why they're our kids. They're part of our community. I've got none of my own, but I promise you, I want the kids to know. I want to be respectful, but I want them to know. I want to be very cognizant of the way they were raised, and I want them to know. Because I promise you that the main goal, the largest, highest, most important goal in all these things is that I want us all to be safe. I want us all to get out of this alive until it's time for us to go. That is serious. All these other kind of things, you have to figure it out for yourself. Because again, there's only so much that I've got in me that I can hold at 3 red bells. And the rest of it, we've got to trust that it's going to be able to take care of itself. There are other people in the world that are taking care of that because it affects them more directly than it does others. I have to let that be okay. I have to. I have to. Because if I'm pulled in 17 different directions, what I see in my mind when I say that phrase is me in the middle, and there is a length of rope connected in 17 literal different directions. And each one of those ropes is individual and they're tied around my waist and they are being pulled in rosetta, a rosette sort of like compass rose situation in each direction. And each one of those people pulls at differing strengths that's on the other end of the rope, and I'm stuck in the middle. If you've got a 400-pound deadlifter pulling in one direction and a 100-pound pencil pushing accountant type in another direction, it's going to be really hard to resist the 400-pound if you've got the 100-pound in opposition. Okay. And not to say that one is better or worse than the other. What I'm saying is it is difficult to just sort of let yourself be pulled along. It's so much more important to choose your direction and try to get that force either disconnected from you if it's not serving you, cut the rope, or it's interesting to get that person moving in the same direction as you, or to get in line so that you've chosen that. We have chosen that as our direction, as our purpose, as our serious note to be given the most attention right now, the most gravity. It's hard because we've got a lot of people pulling in a lot of different directions. And if you've got one person at 400 pounds pulling that way, but the other 16 ropes are being pulled by 100-pound accountants in the opposite direction, that's still 1,600 pounds in opposition to the four. You see where I'm going with this? It's like those little things in your life that may or may not be as important can still win if you're not really careful, if you're not super intentional with where you put your desire, your attention, your priority. You got to be so careful with that. I have to be so careful with that because think about it this way: you've got all those people that are spread perhaps equidistant around the circle. Not only are you getting pulled or you're not making any headway like you want, or you're adrift, or you are kind of stuck in place. It just depends on where you place your intention, what you cut loose, what you decide to untie for now that you may or may not pick up later. You got to be careful with stuff like that. I have to be careful with stuff like that. I deal with procrastination. I deal with getting very excited about having an excuse or a reason not to focus on the things that I know need my attention. Especially as a people person, as someone who loves and wants to help people. Not saying I'm any kind of noble anything. What I'm saying is that it is very easy to place that attention somewhere other than my focus and intention. And I got to be so, so careful of that. Every day I wake up, I got to figure it out. Like this morning I woke up and I feel really productive today and I'm loving this. I'm loving where this is leading because I've done my journal, I studied my Portuguese, I got my coffee, I made my bed, I put stuff into the dishwasher. It was just like, okay, sweet. And now I am sitting in front of my computer and the microphone recording another episode of Radical Joy. And I feel as though when I look at my to-do list, there are so many varied things that I could do during the day. And I love that. I love that for one, that I think that I'm getting a lot done in different areas of my life in a day. And it gives me a really difficult way of keeping up with everything because there are so many different things on there. And I can lend myself to getting overwhelmed by looking at how many different things I've got to do in a day. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I have to get done today. When if I just sat down and did them and enjoyed the fact that they're all so different, that it gives me a chance to change levels and gears and speeds and flavors and colors throughout the day, that it makes me more of a well-rounded individual. I get more done in more areas of my life because I feel as though I can. And it keeps me from getting so one-sided. It keeps me multifaceted. I continue to grind on different parts of my gem that is my life, and it continues to make different faces so that I can reflect and refract different lights in different directions and hopefully be even more beautiful at the end of the day because I haven't spent all day just grinding on that one side. And there are days where you have to. There are days that's literally the only thing that you have to get done that day. It's all in one spot. And that is just the way we do it sometimes. And honestly, sometimes that can be the best. Sometimes you sit down and you focus and you spend 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is you have to do to get that done because there's a sort of Damocles hanging over you. There's a deadline looming, whatever it is. Some days you just got to get her done. And others you get to hop around and take a little bit here, you get a little nibble there. Some days you have to be the workhorse, and some days you get to be the Easter bunny. It just kind of comes down to what it is that we've got to get done, and we continue to check in. This morning, before I even got out of bed, I just closed my eyes for a hot second. I was like, ooh, Lord, let this be a good day. I've got a lot on my agenda today. I get to speak with good friends about starting a podcast. I get to reconnect with a friend that I haven't spoken to in 8 months. And I'm not talking about we haven't seen each other. I mean, I haven't spoken to this individual in months for whatever reason. I get to do work on my social media stuff. I get to record at least one episode right here of Radical Joy. And I continue to kind of, again, it amazes me how these little pictures kind of pop into my head. I keep putting more and more rubber bands on the giant rubber band ball. And each one of them is going to be a little bit of a different color today. And I love that. Some of them are going to be those really wide ones that you get that sort of like hold money together. And then a few of them are going to be these really super skinny ones that you use to, make sure that your power cables don't get tangled. And I love it. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. Today I got some red ones, got some yellow ones, got some blue ones. When I got a few of those nude ones, the ones that are just natural rubber color. Yeah, that's what we're doing today. And it's always just like, okay, great. Today, nothing is serious because it's all these little bite-sized pieces of a lot of things that I need to get done to make sure that I feel accomplished. And then tomorrow, because it's Monday, it's going to be one super specific goal because I need to get this done because it's Monday. Great. Whatever your reasoning, whatever our excuse, whatever our timeline, it's so important to continue to remember that if everything is X, then nothing is X. Absolutes, got to be real careful with them. We just do. As always, I love spending this time with you. Thank you so much for being with me at Radical Joy. Pardon me. My coffee's fighting back. If this is your first episode, welcome. We're so happy you're here. If this is not your first episode, welcome back. Thank you so much for enjoying your time with us enough that you would spend some of your valuable time with us for yet another episode of Radical Joy. We're trying hard, friends. We're here doing the things to make sure that no feeling goes unturned, that we continue to check in with ourselves and our best to make sure that everybody has got that progress that we want to see. Last year, this year, next year, we want to keep building on it and not just starting over. We want to make sure that we continue to put more and more layers on that foundation we continue to build. If you're the type that loves to review and you've enjoyed your time with us here today at Radical Joy, please go ahead and give us a 5-star review. Tell us why you liked it. Take a screenshot. Send it to us. Make sure we see it because we would love to reward you with a sticker from Radical Joy. Because we want to make sure we know that you know that we appreciate the time that we get to spend together. As always, have a wonderful week. I hope this has been a high point. Take good care of you for me. We love you. Love y'all.
The bottom line is, use your words, friends. Thank you for joining us again in this moment of radical joy. If this is your first time, we're so happy you're here. Take a moment to check out our archive, see if there's something else that fires you up, rekindles the joy in you. And hey, spread the word if you enjoyed it. We welcome reviews and messages. Let me know what you want to talk about. I rarely run out of things to say. So if there's something on your mind or heart, I want to hear from you. Don't forget, there is no shame in joy. I am not a therapist or a medical professional. If you're experiencing a mental health emergency, please call 911. This content and other content produced by CLW Studios and affiliated partners is not therapy, and nothing in this content indicates a therapeutic relationship. Any opinions of guests on this podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of James or CLW Studios. Please consult with your therapist or seek one in your area if you're experiencing mental health symptoms. Anything in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Learn more about James and CLW Studios. Follow the link in the show notes. Don't forget to leave a review, and hey, we'll send you a sticker. Just send a screenshot and let us know where you want it sent. Have a great week, and we will see you next Wednesday for another dose of radical joy. Love y'all.